Good evening. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Wilmette Zoning Board of Appeals. Ms. Roberts, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Boyer.
Here.
Mr. Colang.
Here.
Ms. Norick. Here. Mr. Schneider.
Here.
Chairman Duffy.
Here. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you new to our proceedings, the purpose of this board is to hear evidence on applications for variances from our zoning ordinance and on applications for special use. Based upon the evidence we hear this evening, we will make a recommendation to the Village Board of Trustees as to whether the applications that come before us should be granted or denied. We will vote to recommend granting or denying each application for variation based on whether the application meets the standards of review set forth in Section 5.4.f of our village ordinance. Applications for special use will be considered based upon whether the standards of review set forth in Section 5.3.e of our village ordinance are met. The Village Board of Trustees will consider the recommendations we make this evening at their next regularly scheduled meeting on June 25th. Our recommendations to the board are advisory only. The Village Board has the final say on all applications and will make its own determination as to whether to grant or deny them. The Village Board is not legally bound by our recommendations. There is one small exception to this rule. If this board makes a negative recommendation with respect to an application, in order for the Village Board of Trustees to approve that application, a supermajority of 5 Village Board members must vote to approve it, rather than a simple majority of 4. There's one other small peculiarity to our proceedings of which you should be aware. This board does not operate by majority vote. We operate instead by a tyranny of 4. In other words, no matter how many board members are present on a given evening, in order to get a positive recommendation from this board, an application must receive 4 affirmative votes. Ordinarily, this board consists of 7 members. Tonight, however, due to a combination of vacancy and absence, only 5 members are present. Ms. Roberts, as Assistant Director of Community Development, sits with us tonight in an advisory capacity only and is not a voting member of the board. Please be aware, therefore, that a vote of 3-2 in favor of an application will technically go into the record as a negative recommendation with the legal effect that I have previously described. In recognition of this unusual feature of our procedure, when we do not have all members of the board present on a given evening, we give the applicants who are scheduled to come before us that night the option of requesting a continuance to the next available date on our schedule. The next available date for any applicant who would like to request a continuance this evening is June 19th. There is no penalty for asking for a continuance. No such request will be held against you when your case is eventually heard. If you wish to ask for a continuance, however, you must do so at the beginning of your presentation before making any substantive arguments as to the merits of your case. Please also be aware that if you request a continuance, there is no guarantee as to how many board members will be present on the evening to which your case is continued. The cases we shall hear this evening will be heard in the order set forth on the pre-printed agenda located on the table near the door where you first came in. When your case is called, please proceed to the podium, state your name and address, and tell us exactly why your application meets the standards of review that are applicable to it. Each member of this board is a longtime resident of the village and has visited your property during the past week. In addition, we have received from village staff these green booklets containing all written information that you have submitted in support of your application, as well as any other correspondence that the village has received. Accordingly, it is not necessary that you repeat what you have stated in writing. Please just hit the high points with particular attention to why you believe your application meets the standards of review. After the applicant has had a chance to speak, we will open the podium to others who wish to speak either for or against the application. Everyone will be permitted to have their say, though we would ask that you keep your comments as short and to the point as possible. After we have heard all oral presentations, I will close the evidence, and the members of the board will discuss what they have heard and take a vote. Once the evidence is closed, no further testimony on an application may be offered. The only people entitled to speak during that part of the proceeding will be the members of the board. This meeting is a legal proceeding, and all testimony tonight must be given under oath. If you are here and planning to testify tonight, I would ask that you raise your right hand at this time and be sworn. Everybody are you going to speak? No? Okay. Do you swear or affirm that that you will tell the truth in the testimony that you're about to give? If so, please say, I do. All right, thank you very much. Ms. Roberts, please call the first case of the evening.
Our first case is 2019 Z17, 1936 Schiller Avenue.
Hello. Hello, Zoning Board. My name is Holly Kravitz. I am a 19-year resident of Wilmette, but also have a small business where I do install synthetic turf from time to time, and we installed a putting green in Wilmette. We are asking to table this until the next meeting for many reasons. So we
Okay.
respectfully ask that we move it to June 19th.
All right, do I have a motion to move this?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next case is 2019 Z22, 2124 Schiller Avenue.
Hello, welcome.
Hi, I'm Joey Henricks with Mariani Landscape for 2124 Schiller, and I'm requesting to table to June 19th.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Boyer, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. Thank you very much. For you that have just asked to be moved to the next meeting, you guys can go at any time. You don't have to stay and watch us, although it is a good show.
Or you can catch us on TV.
Turn to Channel 6, yeah, Channel 6 on your local station. Right.
Our next case is 2019 Z18, 1355 Chestnut Avenue. This is a request for a 5.5-foot side yard air conditioner condenser setback variation to permit the retention of 2 new air conditioner condensers.
Hello, welcome.
Hello. I'm the homeowner, Renee Hall.
And the architect, Lisa Rossola.
All right.
We've just finished gutting and rebuilding the house. The house has been there for quite a while.
1940s.
Yeah. And the air conditioners were on that side. We were going to replace them and realized it's a zoning issue.
All right. So you have replaced them already.
We have.
You're asking for relief from already replacing these.
Was there one or two?
There was
originally?
one.
There was one originally?
Now there's 2.
And these are, I'm sorry, and these are opposite the neighbor's air conditioner, right?
Correct.
Yes.
And they have sent a letter.
Right, that
to
is
support
this,
it.
the Sitzers.
Yes.
Okay, and we have a letter at our place when we sat down, a letter of support from the neighbor to the east. All right, do we have any questions for our applicant?
I went there, I rang the bell, nobody answered, but I walked through that front courtyard to look at this little community of condensers. From both your neighbor to the east and yours, which to the north is this little brick wall that surrounds your terrace, and to the south is a fence. So I thought that's a kind of a nice little
Condenser park.
congregation of condensers, and I understand that the one to the east, they're much bigger, and one of them was turned on when I was there. Didn't make too much noise. I mean, I could have sat there and read a book, but so I'm pretty good about it.
All right, any questions for our applicant?
I guess the only thing is, I'd like to know is what would you have to do if to put it in a conforming location? Like, what modifications would you have to make?
There's a deck, existing deck off the back of the house, so we would either have to put it on the deck right by the doors of the new porch, and then we would have to rewire it, repipe it, all that kind of stuff from the furnace.
And how far away is it from the furnace?
If we moved
yeah.
it,
Roughly,
12 feet, 14 feet.
okay.
I'm sorry, I'm looking for, so the deck's been there for a while?
The deck's always been there.
Yeah, all right, that's why I was looking for the date of your survey that had the deck on it. It looks like it was 2017. Any other questions for our applicant? No. All right. Is there anything else you want to add? No? Is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak either for or against the case? Then I'm going to close the case and ask if there's a member of the board who wants to make a motion. All right, Mr. Colling.
Move to recommend granting a request for a 5.5-foot side yard air conditioner condenser setback variation to permit the retention of 2 new air conditioner condensers at 1355 Chestnut Avenue in accordance with the plan submitted.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Boyer, second. All right, Mr. Colling, your motion.
Yeah, we see a fair amount of these, and unless there's neighbor complaints, I mean, this is a little different since you already did it, so we're supposed to look at it as if it hadn't been done, and what would we say, and we may have spent a little more time on alternate locations. But, I mean, this is a setback we've agreed to before. The neighbors signed off. Their condensers are on the other side of the wall, so I think it meets the standards of review, and I can support it.
All right, Mr. Boyer.
All right, all the mechanics are there. Existing location from the other condenser, and the conforming location really isn't the best place for it with the existing conditions of the property, so I think it meets all standards.
All right, any other comments?
No, I had similar thoughts that you're replacing the units in their existing location, and there are those connections already, so.
Yeah, that's where I was too. So it's really, if they would have come to us before putting them in, you know, they're replacing in the existing location. So I think we would have all gone along with it, especially since the neighbors' condensing units are there already. So why don't we take a vote?
Mr. Colling?
Yes.
Mr. Boyer?
Yes.
Ms. Norick?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Chairman Duffy?
Chair votes yes as well. So that's going to go as a positive recommendation of the village board. Their meeting's on the, I already forgot, the 24th? 25th. Did you say 25th? You remembered it, okay. Too many things. So 25th, it'll be in this room, 7 o'clock. I suggest you come. It's going to be on their consent agenda, so it'll be at the very beginning of the meeting. They'll say yes to a whole bunch of items, and then you can leave, unless somebody pulls it off and wants to discuss it, but I doubt that. If you could come up as homeowner and just sign off on one of these letters for me, and then the other one you can take with you.
I move to
Thank you very
authorize the
much.
chairman to prepare the report and recommendation for the zoning board of appeals for case number 2019 Z18.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I as well. You're very welcome.
That one's for you. Yeah, thanks so much. Our next case is 2019 Z19, 624 Elmwood Avenue. This is a request for a 396.42 square foot total floor area variation and a 9.54 foot rear yard stair setback variation to permit the construction of an exterior stairway.
Hi,
Welcome.
thanks. I'm John Maher, and this is my wife Dina, and we are asking for a variation, 624 Elmwood, of course, and we're asking for a variation. Actually, it appears to us that it's a much smaller amount than is in the variation we also already received 8 years ago to do an addition, because really we're just asking for what amounts to less than 30 feet square foot of above 6'6" stair and landing to access a deck, which was initially intended for use when the construction was done in 2012, but was subsequently not denied, but removed from the application. And we feel like there's sort of a hardship in our yard because we're in one of those pie-shaped subdivisions and we happen to be that angled, truncated lot where there's not a very large backyard, and it comes all the way to the corner of our house in a sort of triangle. And over the years, since we don't have an alley, there's also power lines running down the middle, which over the years have been trimmed, causing 3 trees on the neighbors' yards to just continue to come in our direction, and now they sort of turn our backyard into in the summer when all the leaves are in, there's no sunlight back there, and we can't have any gardens. It's a hard time growing grass, although in May of this year we're having no trouble at all.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looked pretty good when I was over there.
Right now it's growing great.
Have a good landscape.
Well, I work pretty hard at it, but by the middle of the summer, we don't have any, and we certainly can't grow any, substantial gardens or plants. They just, being on the north side of the house and the tree situation, we don't have it. And we we would like to just add a rooftop, which is 20 by 20, with these stairs going from our back deck up the back side of the garage to a small landing, accessing the rooftop where we could have, we could have flower planters and vegetable boxes up there, as well as, seating and
So do you have access to that deck right now?
we do, but it's, we have access through a window, a bedroom window. In fact, my daughter and her two 14-year-old friends were out there this afternoon. It has railings around it, so.
Right, so.
And it's
right.
load-bearing.
Yes.
Right, so I remember your case because it was a two-car garage, and I remember it's vaguely about wondering why it needed to be a two-car garage, and I was like, well, everybody wants a two-car garage, and because it would have been a one-car garage if you would have put it on the driveway.
Yes.
But since you put it at the back at an angle, you get two cars in there. So I vaguely remember this.
Yep.
Right now, and that was just part of more work that you did to the back of the house, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now you only have access to it through a window.
Yes.
But you got furniture up there. You got something up there right now.
Yes.
Right. So you guys, you currently use it.
We do.
There's a door on the east side of the house that's onto another like balcony or deck, right? Could you not just do some stairs from that down to the deck?
We could. There would only be access through our bedroom, and so anyone who wanted to use it from the back deck, family, friends, or whatever, would have to come through our bedroom. In addition, and I ran this by Lisa, because we did get pricing from a contractor on both options. That option also crossed a small area of open space, which, again, although it would only be a few square feet,
Right.
would require another.
Right, because you're already over from the previous variance that was granted when you did the addition?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, but even that one would put me in the same position I'm in now, asking for the variance.
But it would be less of a request.
It would be, instead of 26 square feet, I think it would be something like 6.
So that's the incremental, the
That's-
26 square feet is the incremental ask, right?
That's right.
All right. Is there more you want to share, or?
Well, I'll let you, if you want to have any
Yeah, I was
questions.
gonna say,
for me,
let's
could-
see if there's
I could keep
questions
going,
from
but
members of the
certainly
board,
If you
yeah.
have questions,
Yeah.
I'll stop now.
The question I have is, I remember this case as well, and from what I remember, the deck wasn't part of the proposal. So it was a neighbor that was to the east on Elmwood. He was concerned about the
On
deck.
Sheridan, yes.
Neighbor to the north on Sheridan.
No, it was on
you're talking about-
You're talking
603.
about west?
Like Dr.
You're talking about Dr. Colbert.
So I reread the proposal in 2011, and then they reworked it for his satisfaction and redid it. His initial argument was that he thought there was going to be a large dormer on his, in front of his
Well, not the
home.
dormer, it's just, I was curious that there's a deck now, because in the original minutes, there was a number
He was
of,
mistaken that he thought there was going to be a deck on his side because there had been a flat roof there initially. Now, the deck ended up being on the east, off the bedroom. There's a small walkway off the east side.
well, so in the minutes, as the architect explained the plan, the railing is purely decorative and matches the house. So referencing the deck, the applicant said that the neighbor was looking at the old plan, there's no longer a deck in the proposal. So what am I missing?
Can I?
Okay.
Yes,
Do
sir.
you mind?
No,
Okay. So back
I'm
at
going to
the-
stop
back
real
at the
quick.
t-
So, Mrs. Maher, you did not get sworn in. If you're going to add any testimony, I need to swear you in.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
Do you swear or affirm that you tell the truth in the testimony about your give? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you. Just a technicality.
No problem.
All right.
So back at the time, I was not with the architect. He said I should come by myself. I didn't realize that maybe I should have been here. But there were two neighbors that wrote letters. One was Dr. Colbert. He was to the west of us. He thought incorrectly that the deck area where there was going to be the railing was going to be over my son's bedroom, which was an addition that we put on the north side of the house. And so he thought it was going to block his son. So he originally objected to that. When he realized that that was not the case, he removed his objection. The other side of the house where the deck actually is, and it was intended to be that, the neighbor to the north of us said he was worried about the garage, but in reality, he was worried because the original plan had the garage quite a bit further west than it is, and so he wanted it moved back. At which time, when it was moved back, he said, I now have no objections. You can't see into my yard. It's not going to block my light, breeze, all of that. Unfortunately, at that time, my architect did not then say, okay, great, let's put the stairs in and let's make use of this deck. He just moved the garage. So it was an oversight, really, on his part. But what you're talking about in terms of objections was someone that misunderstood what the plan was. So he wasn't objecting to the actual garage where the deck area is. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying. I'll have to peruse through my notes. So I think I read it differently than the way you're explaining it. And what was the address of that house?
So he's at 630, well, no longer, he's deceased, but he was at 630, so he's directly west, he was directly west of me.
Right.
And so nothing we did there was anywhere near the area that we're talking about in question right now.
Okay. And then what was the other address?
So the other address is a Sheridan Road address, and he has no problem with it, and he
1125. I believe.
and he removed his objection to it even then. But sadly, at that point, they moved the garage back in the plan, but never added in access to it.
Got it.
So, have you heard from any of your neighbors about this? Because, it seems to me that a more intense use of that space kind of infringes on other people's privacy. You now have more access to that roof deck to see into more people's,
Right, so
yeah.
we not only sent letters by mail to everyone, but then we spoke to Jeff Ford, who wrote the initial argument about it, and he said we have no problem with it. We did, and then Lisa informed me that someone had written a letter, and it turned out, and I went and I asked Jeff again. I said, did your wife write a letter? I thought there was no problem. He said, no, it wasn't us. Turns out it was the people kitty corner behind us who I subsequently spoke with, and they did say, look, we just want to make sure that you're not going to be loud and obnoxious up there, but we have no problem with it. So I've spoken to them, I've spoken to the new people on both sides of us, and everyone seems completely happy with it and has expressed no problems whatsoever, except that I did promise the guy that we will not be a nuisance up there.
You'll have them over for the first deck party? So you did.
We're not young, we don't have loud parties, really.
Yeah, but it's the 14, soon to be 16 and 18-year-old that you worry about. We're not worried about us 30-somethings.
Thank you for that.
Well, the issue was not only that it could be loud, but the original complaint was that you can see into my yard. Well, that was 8 years ago, and now you can't because these pine trees are probably 30 feet in the air, and you can actually see into the yard from under them, sitting in the backyard, but you can't from the roof deck anymore.
Right, so we have better access to see into their yard and infringe on their privacy when we're
In
on
your
the
yard.
regular level
Yeah.
versus that one.
So, a lot of times, when we get these requests for FAR, which is floor area ratio, the floor area ratio is a multiple of the size of the lot, trying to control the density of the structure that's on that lot. It's a struggle sometimes because, it seems like this is a small request because you're just asking for roughly 20 feet. What was it, 26 feet? 26 feet. So it doesn't seem like a lot, but you're already over because of the addition you put on, so now we're adding more. And I know it's only 26 feet, but it's more. And the reason that, we have FAR in place is to kind of control what's on each lot. And you are on, it's an odd-shaped lot, so it's a smaller lot. The control, it's a ratio of the lot. So we're trying to, I don't know, this is one I'm personally struggling with because you already got a variance for more house on the lot than what the ratio calls for. Now you're asking for a little more to increase the use of the area. So I'm.
It's actually, though, that to make use of a yard, because we have had our house on the market for the last several years, and every comment that came in was there's not usable space. And so this would create usable space. So we're in essence creating a yard and creating green space where we unfortunately don't have it because we were, sort of saddled with this lot, and I was willing to fix up the house rather than tear it down and do something different so that we could kind of preserve the integrity of the neighborhood.
Right.
And so we're just hoping to then be able to make use of the space.
Right. Well, we can't take into consideration more value as part of the decision. That's one of the criteria that we have to follow. By increasing I can read it to you in a second.
No, I read it.
Yeah.
I know where you're going.
So
exactly
it's
with
not
that.
something that we can use as an argument to help with this.
And I read that, so I understand that argument.
I mean, I understand, but you've kind of created your own problem.
Well,
When you built the addition and got the variance for the garage, you kind of created some of this
right,
issue.
so I think what probably happened in 2011, based on this letter from our neighbor, who claimed that putting the garage in the back of the yard was going to reduce the open space, and the garage would be in the middle of our backyard and cut off our southwesterly breezes, and none of the garages in that triangle are in the backyard. It wasn't quite true because his is the only one that is in the backyard, in fact, and nobody ever caught that, including her architect, who came back to her and said, one, we want to move the garage here.
Yeah.
20 feet to the south.
Closer to the house.
To accommodate the neighbor, because he didn't want to look at what he called a giant brick house in his backyard. And, and this is no, it's a stupid argument, but that's what he did to us. He basically put a barn in our backyard and in our picture window the moment we were done. The other thing is...
So that's a new structure?
No, it's painted, though.
But his structure that structure's been there.
Yes, it's been there, but he argued that our garage in the back of his yard was going to be a nuisance to him. And her architect did not possibly show that picture that would say, what are you talking about, nuisance?
Right.
The other thing is...
But his nuisance was there when you bought your house. Now you're trying to put a new...
Okay,
you see that argument?
let me just go way off the page here then.
Please.
We're doing a $55 to a $90 million sewer system on the other end of town that we're paying for. That nuisance wasn't mine. I never bought those homes. Those homes have been getting water since the 20s, and yet we're spending $90 million, and I want 30 feet, and all of a sudden I'm breaking all the rules because I bought the house with that problem already, there.
But you bought into the village that had the sewer problems.
Agreed, but I'm paying...
Did we know that the sewer problems were there? No, but every village has to address their infrastructure issues.
And
over
I will
time.
agree with you that it's worth it because it helps the value of the whole village
Yep.
to bail those guys out. If I didn't mean even to say that, but
I guess no pun intended, right?
There you go. That's
it came
better
out and I
phrasing.
realized it at the same time it was coming out. But the other, if you want to talk about improving the value in the of the neighborhoods and the town, you look all over the country, residential, commercial, and municipalities are putting rooftop gardens and rooftop space all over the place. And there's a couple of reasons: greenery, open space, good for the environment, and people enjoy it and they like it, and it's not detrimental to the value of anyone's property. And you could look out the end of this hallway here, and I would recommend getting that stone rooftop off and putting some grass up there. But, that's all we're asking is, a little more garden space because we don't have any.
But it's beyond garden space that you're asking. You're asking to use the roof more intensely and access to do so.
Yes.
And that's, like I said earlier, that's just, personally, that's my struggle. I don't know how the other board members feel about it. I just was sharing.
I just have a question about, part of your struggle is I've already asked for the variance, and it would have been granted at the time had they asked, because everyone was in favor of it at that time, including the homeowner who originally complained. So when we originally got the variance to
for
get
what?
more space, to put that garage there,
Variance for the garage.
yes,
Okay.
we were going to have access to it. And someone complained, and then He took away his complaint, and my architect
Because you no longer
neglected
made
to
it a
put the...
nuisance to him.
Right, but
Okay.
he neglected to
So-
put
so it
the
could be a nuisance
change
to
back
somebody
in.
else. I mean, that's kind of
So
the
it
argument
would
that
have
we
been
have.
approved in its entirety at that point, at the time that you approved it.
I'll circle back to what my original point. So I found in my notes that the neighbor, which I think you said he's deceased,
Yes.
and the 2012 case, the 2011 case, for sure he had an issue with the deck. And the architect said that there's going to be no deck. The railing is purely decorative, matches the house.
And that's on the garage.
That's a different deck he's talking about there. That's,
It's the deck over the
That's-
bedroom addition. that they-
I know it's in writing there,
So
but
did
he
I
mistook.
miss it?
The
So-
homeowner that you're talking about is nowhere near where the deck
Just
is.
so I understand it. So there's no deck on the garage.
There is a deck on the
He
garage.
misunderstood where the deck was going to be.
Who misunderstood?
Mr.
The
Cole.
architect?
Dr. Colbert
Dr. Colbert.
was complaining about a deck he thought was next to his home.
So,
As it turned
no,
out,
but-
it was not next
No,
to his home.
So the architect, it says the architect explained the plan. The garage is connected to the house, but it's not connected to the master bedroom. The railing referencing the garage is purely decorative, meaning there's no deck, and matches
That was his
the
answer
house.
to Jeff Fort's complaint, who was not the homeowner
But it
to
doesn't matter
the
who
north.
he's answering that there's no deck on the garage with this statement, right? So there's mudrooming, so far. The applicant said that the neighbor was looking at the old plan, there's no longer a deck proposal. He explained that the garage was in a different location from the first plan. So we're talking about a deck and the garage.
Yes, and if you look at Jeff Fort's response to that after his letter, he said, now that it's moved, I don't have concern.
I'll read it to you. Another option is, it's paragraph 4 of his letter, and it says, suppose you move it to outside the bay window, which is where it is, a few feet away. In any event, that location, which is a few feet away from our garage, would not pose the problems that the proposed location would.
No, I understand. Let me stop you there. So that's a letter from the neighbor. I get that. But these are minutes from your architect. This is minutes from the meeting. This is your architect's statement when he was talking about the garage.
Yes.
So, no, I understand that there was a miscommunication between this neighbor and that neighbor where the garage was and what the deck was.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, the architect said there was no deck on the garage. That's his
Does
word.
it matter if
he's
he
really
said it or if
mistaken.
there is?
But is there a deck now?
There's a deck, in fact, it's a load-bearing deck, and I've got the plans.
built
They were
that
built
way.
with 2x12s.
So okay, I'm going to stop. So the roof covering right now is a deck itself, or is there a
It
deck
is.
on top of the roof?
It's a vinyl
Okay.
material that you can
Walk
and
on and do everything
play
on.
on, yes.
Okay,
And that's how the garage was built.
Correct.
yeah, all right. And you just want more access to that?
That's right.
All right, do we have any other questions for our applicant? No other questions? All right. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak either for or against this case? Nobody? All right. I'm going to close the case and ask if there's a member of the board who wants to make a motion. Member of the board who wants to make a motion.
Sure.
Mr. Colling, thank you very much. You guys can have a seat.
Okay.
I'll second.
Page 10.
There we go. Move to recommend granting request for a 396.42 square foot, 4.72% total floor area variation, and a 9.54 foot rear yard setback variation to permit the construction of an exterior stairway at 624 Elmwood Avenue in accordance with the plan submitted.
And Mr. Schneider, second. Mr. Colling, your motion.
Yeah, so first of all, I think, there's been no alteration of the garage. What's up there is up there, and they want to use the space. You look at the picture, you still see the garage, there's an extra 26 square feet, which is, in most of the cases we look at, pretty de minimis. You can still see the garage. It's not like you added a room there or whatever. It's a staircase, it's open. It doesn't even, look like, that you're adding bulk, really. And I think, the hardship with the rear yard setback is obviously their lot. So, you know, I think it's a rather de minimis request. I think they're taking the staircase from one deck. It's a pretty open structure. It doesn't even look like it's adding bulk. They're connecting to a garage roof that hasn't been altered. They want to use it for greenery and this and that, and probably, you know, sit up there and have a, I don't know if you can see the lake from there or not. Okay.
Trees
so-
get in the way.
So you know, I think there's hardship with the lot, and I think the square footage request is de minimis, and so I think it meets the standards of review, and I can support it.
All right, Mr. Schneider?
I agree. I think climbing through the bedroom window to get to this place is
Dangerous.
not a pleasant event, so I think the 26 square feet to build a stairway rather than a ladder or something else is not the worst thing in the world, so I can support it.
All right, any other comments? Mr. Boyer?
I think I'm going to take a different approach. I think it's, the use is fairly intensive. It may be a smaller request, but overall, even though the lot does have some issues, it's still almost a 9,000 square foot lot. So if you had a 50-foot wide lot, it'd be 50 by 167. I know the issue comes in because there's a lot of house on that lot, and it causes a lot of issues spatially. But the additional use of a garage roof is not typical for the neighborhood. I think it's an intensive use that is something I can't support.
Okay.
It may not be typical, but, I mean, it's not prohibited. So, you know, there's a railing around it, they're putting flowers and stuff up there, probably a table and some chairs. I guess, I don't see how that creates a significantly additional use there.
And so, you know what, the house to the west is vacant right now. So I walked into his backyard and looked that way. And I thought, okay, if I'm living in this house and my neighbor builds, a deck on top of their garage, is that more intrusive on me? Do I feel like I'm being, my space is being invaded at all? And I thought, over time, maybe you get used to it, but, and if it happens initially, it's an altering of the character of your backyard, of your space, because your neighbor is now more, intrusive on your space. So I said, okay, is this a change of the character of the neighborhood if you're just looking at the backyards that all are kind of connecting back there? And then the other thing that I saw in this was, as we're asking for variations, the house had already been given a variation to put the addition on, and now we're giving them more of a variation. I understand it's only 26 feet, but was the plight created by the homeowner? It's one of our standards of review, and yeah, the plight was created by the homeowner. They built to be bigger than the lot allows, and we allowed that, and now they're asking for more. And so I know these are kind of minor points, and I think it can be argued they're gray. But the thing that stood out more to me was just the impact if I was one of the neighbors that now has somebody, with a second-story deck that wasn't there before, and how is that impacting my use of my property? That's the one that I'm stumbling on.
Well, they can already access the roof.
But it creates a more intense use of it because now it gives free access to it.
It doesn't necessarily create more, it just creates an easier access.
No, I mean, how many times did they say during their presentation that we have to climb through a window to get out there if we want to get out there? 3 or 4 times. They're dictating to us how hard it is to use it right now, and now you're creating more access to it to make it more an intense use.
I can just put a ladder up and a gate and the fence, and I can get up. I don't,
Yeah. All right. It's the one I struggled with, was then changed to my property. All right.
So is the garage that was built, right, and then there's a deck now on top of the garage, and they need access to it, therefore they need a variance, and so that's your reason for saying that it was self-created?
Yeah, but like I said, I think that one's more gray to me than the one where I feel like my space is being, my privacy is being intruded on a little bit. I think that one's more important to me personally than would be this variation of 26 more feet, although that is something that you take into consideration, because you can say one of the standards of review is the plights created by the homeowner, not necessarily by the lot itself. But again, I say, I think I can make that one gray in my mind and be okay with it, but then I am still struggling with the privacy part.
So are you saying that a garage that has a flat roof
Mhm.
and that is used for whatever purposes would impinge on the privacy of the adjacent neighbors?
I would, yeah. And I
So you
think,
can't use a flat roof garage for entertainment?
so here's what I'm saying, and very specifically, I'm saying that if the use was not there, and now it is there, because it's, now you have access to it, easy access to it, now it's changed. And if I was the existing homeowner, and I would feel like my privacy was being affected that way. If I bought the house and the deck was there and already being used, well, I bought the house and the deck was there, and I have no, this is what I bought, I knew that this was gonna happen. And so therefore, my privacy is not
What
changing.
if they change the window?
To a door.
renovate it to a door?
Yeah, then they wouldn't be coming to us for a variance.
Then that would be okay.
They wouldn't be coming to us for a variance, and we would have no say in it.
So what if they built a movable set of stairs that, you
Well,
put it at the
that's
side
what
of
I-
the garage in the wintertime, and in the summertime, you have it go up to the roof. You have the same access, the same use.
Well, this is, one of the things that I brought up initially was, well, how about stairs off that one door that's already existing, and then you're coming for 5 square feet, and
But
it's really
it
nothing.
doesn't
in that.
change the roof use issue that you seem to be focusing on.
It does. I don't know why, but in my mind, I would have an easier time with, hey, it's really, I'm just connecting this to this, and I would just want to use it instead of jumping across it or whatever we're doing right now. Yeah. It just seems like it's more intense use. I guess the other argument is with the door that's on the house existing right now is through a bedroom, it sounds like. And so would that slow down some of the use of it? I think, maybe it would. There's not going to be, 16-year-olds out there at midnight because they got to traipse through their parents' room or somebody else's room in order to access it. I don't know. It seems now it's just going to be more intense use to me.
Okay.
I can support the request. I think it's a small ask. I'm reasonably certain it was an oversight on part of their architect to not put those stairs back in their proposal.
Well, there never were stairs in the proposal. Yeah.
Well, they've explained that they had intended that, but when they had some controversy.
No, there were never stairs to access that roof in any of the proposals. Is that correct? You've got the minutes to both of those meetings?
Well, those, according to both, 2000, 2011, 2012, I read it as there was never supposed to be a deck up there. So therefore, there wouldn't be stairs in the plan. And I know Derbyshire would have seen the stairs going to the garage, deck and roof, and then he would have had discussion about it. There was no discussion.
But you still see support.
I do. I think it's a small ask. They say they've communicated with other neighbors. None of their neighbors have expressed this concern that you are expressing.
All right, everybody's comfortable with comments? Okay, why don't we take a vote?
Mr. Colang.
Yes.
Mr. Schneider.
Yes.
Mr. Boyer.
No.
Ms. Norick.
Yes.
Chairman Duffy.
Chair's going to vote no as well. So this is going to go as a negative recommendation of Village Board. Keep in mind, Village Board overturns our votes all the time. It's just, all this says is that they need 5 of the 7 to vote yes instead of 4. The meeting's on the 25th in this room, 7 o'clock. They're going to have you come and talk about it and ask you some questions, and then they'll vote. Similar to this, it should not be as long as this one, though. So if... no, not at all. You needed to present your side. I mean, it's perfectly... So,
You can do
Mr.
that
Maher,
after the board.
yeah, you can bring letters, yeah. Mr. Maher, could you come and sign one of these for me and take the other one with you? Mister? Oh, are you both not homeowners? Oh, okay.
Either way.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. You were on the request, so.
You're on there as the applicant, but it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter. Yep.
I move to authorize the chairman to prepare the report and recommendation for the zoning board of appeals for case number 2019-Z19.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye as well.
And that's for your fridge, and I'll take that one.
Thanks. Sorry, but you're going to the meeting anyway. All right, when you're ready.
Our next case is 2019-Z23, 1143 to 1147 Greenleaf Avenue. This is a request for a special use for an art studio to permit the operation of a private personal training facility.
Good evening. Welcome, guys.
How you doing?
Good evening. So these are directional. So they're, if you talk to the side, you can't hear as much, so you kind of, all right.
Got it. Is that okay?
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm just, it's for the like 3 people that watch the show.
Understood.
Yeah,
My
you're
name is
on
Mike
TV?
Glosniak. It's Glosniak. I'm actually a resident of Western Springs. I'm here on council on behalf of the applicant.
All right.
My name's Cam Paulson. I'm founder of Strive Village, currently downtown Chicago.
I'm Peter Lee. I'm a co-owner of Strive Village, and my wife and I and our 4 kids, we've lived in Wilmette for the last 10 years. So.
Why do you have hair?
Someone's got to have it.
Someone's got to make us look good.
All right, so one second, okay. The applicant is Studio 54 North LLC. This is the entity that's taking possession of the space? And
Correct.
You're going to be DBA Strive, what'd you call it, Strive Village?
Yes, correct. Yeah, the entity was just created. That's the tenant of the space right now.
Right.
They're operating under the Strive Village, you go by?
Yeah.
Where they currently have a studio gym, similar to what they're intending to do here in River North, Chicago right now.
All right.
Yeah, the parent company is 45, or is 45.
45 Stable, yeah, very similar sounding entity.
All right.
So we're here tonight on application for a special use to utilize the space at 1143, 1147 Greenleaf to operate as a small boutique, private kind of personal one-on-one training facility. After consultation with the Community Development Board, it was deemed that this would fall under a art studio classification. Which requires a special use. Our contracted architect has submitted a letter answering the standards of review questions. I'd be happy to answer any more of them, but
All right, so I saw in here 6 to 8 employees at any one time, is that right?
Yeah, that'll be, once we're fully maxed out
Right.
in business, we'll have 6 to 8 coaches, 8 at the most, but 8 to 10 clients along with that.
Along with that.
So it's not like a health club style. It's really exclusive private trainings, really
Right.
low key.
I think, day one, the vision would be like 2 trainers, right? 2 to 3
Oh, yeah.
trainers.
Right.
Or just myself.
Okay. And then and as far as parking, a lot across the street from you where Panera is, that's free parking. That's not owned by that strip center. They just happen to benefit from it. And then, of course, you've got the train station parking. Correct in that statement?
Yes, that is all public parking.
All public parking, yep.
And along Greenleaf and then along.
Right. Right, so we don't really have a parking issue, I don't think. Any questions for our applicant about this?
This, all the space that the previous barbecue place rented, so this is the total, okay.
And it's the,
and then there's a current nail salon, I believe, that they are.
Antiques.
Or is it
Antiques,
antiques?
yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
it's the Raven and Dove Will.
Yeah. I think
They're moving.
the woman that owns that is
Those two.
moving.
Yeah,
so
the
then
Central
the
Street
landlord
neighbors.
offered that
January.
space to us as well, which.
Okay, so it's those two spots.
All right, so you're not initially taking that space? The Raven and Dove space, is that
I
right?
believe January, we're going to be getting that space.
Expand into that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. Any other questions?
I'm just asking for the former barbecue.
Correct, yeah.
No.
Well, no, that was a correction I wanted to make. Initially, I think it had one property. I want to make sure this included,
Both.
so we don't have to do this all over again.
Oh, sure.
We'd
Right.
like requesting special use for both, just knowing that we're under lease for that space, but it won't kick in until about January of 2020.
Any other questions for our applicant? No. That's it, really? Awesome. All right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm nervous
Thank
there
you.
for the last round.
No, it's totally different.
Yeah, totally different issue.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, all right. I'm going to ask if there's anybody in the audience who wants to come speak for or against. No? Is someone to make a motion here? Mr. Schneider's motion?
Yes. I need a second.
No. You're going to read the motion.
Oh, I see.
So moved, he said.
Right.
In case number 2019Z-23, I move to recommend granting a request for a special use for an art studio to permit the operation of a private personal training facility at 1143 to 1147 Greenleaf Avenue in accordance with the plan submitted. The zoning board must determine if the special use should run with the land or the use. I suggest the use.
Yes, absolutely. This will run with the use. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Boyer, second. Mr. Schneider, your motion.
I sort of have always, with all of these changes, from retail to service uses, it's something we regret, but it's the trend that is happening. I mean, we can't stop it. And, I wished another similar replacement were to lease the space as the previous tenant. I think we need to deal with reality that the retail environment is changing, and this looks like an appropriate replacement given the circumstances. So I can support it.
All right, Mr. Boyer?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue people would have is, it would, on this would turn on parking, and since the village is pretty limited with parking, but I don't see an issue with this type of facility, this type of business. I think it's a welcome addition. I think it meets all the standards of review. It's a thriving downtown. I think a lot of parking problems come from all the awesome restaurants that we have. But, take the good, bad with the good, right? So I can support it.
All right, any other comments? No?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you'd like to have retail, but since it's being, the special use is an art studio, I guess you can always sell art down the road, too. And that space has been vacant for quite a long period of time, so I think to get something in there is great, and so I can support it.
Yeah, I too. I think it meets all the standards of review for a special use, and I, think that you guys will, hit your stride and do well there, because it's easy to get to. People can get off the train and come in and see you guys, or do it before work, whatever. And there really is enough parking around there, especially if you come down the side street, whatever it is. I can't remember.
Poplar. Or Greenleaf?
No, the one that runs parallel to the tracks.
Poplar.
Yeah, go down Poplar. So I, too, see no problem supporting it. Let's take a vote.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Colang?
Yes.
Ms. Norick?
Yes.
Chairman Duffy?
Chair votes yes as well, so that's going to go as a positive recommendation, Village Board, June 25th meeting, in this room, 7 o'clock. If one of you guys could come up and sign this for me and take one with you, I suggest you come.
Part of the applicant?
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Move to authorize the chairman to prepare the report and recommendation for the zoning board of appeals for case number 2019-Z-23.
Second, anybody? All right, Ms. Norick, second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well.
Move to approve the zoning board of appeals minutes for Wednesday, April 17th, 2019.
Do you have a second? Second, Mr. Schneider, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well.
Move to approve the meeting minutes for the zoning board of appeals for Wednesday, May 1st, 2019.
Second.
Mr. Boyer, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. All right, next agenda item is public comment. Anybody wants to make any comments, come on up and make your comments, and announce any parties, announce a birth if you so choose, but seeing nobody coming up, I am going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.